If you don't believe in supernatural phenomena, there has to be. But there are a lot of gaps in our understanding as to what that might be. So we're trying to work out a nice continuous path.
And I take a trillion planets each way exactly the right.
Well, so if there's a problem, if there's a hard step, I suppose the hard step is making a design that can replicate itself. That in principle could be so rare that exactly like you said, we could be
a lot of possible universes, so it could be any of those.
It could be, or on the other hand, it could be that every step along the way is very easy and it's almost inevitable given a suitable planet. In which case, there might be hundreds of millions of planets with life.
What's your intuition at the moment?
So I used to refuse to answer that question, but
Okay.
I'm sort of coming around to the idea that all the steps might be easy because, and this is purely based on extrapolation, that every time we look at a particular step that looks hard because we have no idea how to solve it, eventually there's a solution and it ends up looking really easy. And there haven't been any exceptions to that so far. So
Okay.
if that continues.
Right. And how have you been, first of all?
Great.
Good.
He's alive. I almost found him.
I heard. But was it as unexpected, almost dying?
Yeah, it was a close one. I
Really?
have a new aorta.
I was wondering.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, well, they're watching it for accident.
Right.
And didn't expect to even think of anything until the spring. He was having an appointment this spring at Paola.
I thought Vortex would be nice, but they insisted on gases.
No, just fine. Thank you.
Anyway, so
It just busted one night? No.
Yeah.
No.
What's that?
It busted one night?
it grew.
I mean, so it wasn't you get felt a little sick over a period of time. It was just there was a,
It must have been leaking because it was 2 days.
Yeah, but one night it was that. And he was out there.
But they fixed it by drilling a little hole here. This whole thing in, which is
really?
really amazing.
That was a stent, and that was mine.
So there's no scar for all of this.
You have new internal wiring done through the exit plug?
Right.
Well, they just put another pipe inside the old bulge out.
That's running like a new conduit in the old conduit?
So it's like it inflates on the inside.
Wow.
Some coffee, Mario? Coffee? Some coffee?
Oh. Tea, but I said, you sure that you have it together?
So the thing is to be near a place like MGH.
Right.
Well, that's why I think the
That's where I
original surgeon didn't want to go to the
It's a great,
Yeah,
great place to
that's
work.
fine.
Yes.
Something bad happens. It's good to be able to. It's really good.
Yeah, that's what gets you this.
What hospital do you live in?
Well, well, in New York, it's easy. I have my selection. But being in the,
Sinai still good? That's where my father was.
yeah, there's lots of good hospitals, as long as there's no traffic. If they're lighting the Christmas tree, you're dead no matter what happens. Because you can't get anywhere unless the hospital's in your house. But since I live in the island, the Virgin Islands, was tricky because I had the flu and I fainted. And I said, how am I going to get, there's no hospital for hundreds of miles.
Right.
There's a hospital, but it's just by name only.
What about a helicopter then?
But to where? I can,
St. Thomas is
Yes, what's the range of the helicopter?
well, I can go to St. Thomas, but
nothing new. It's good.
they practice this form of medicine referred to as unga bunga, which is not the latest. It has sort of the version of a stent is a bone from their nose, right? Yes,
So let's see.
Miami.
Like,
That's 2.5 hours by plane. I didn't like the idea of traveling.
No tunnel.
Marvin, when you were looking at the concept, how do you describe in intelligence deception? What's the basics? Because anything that is intelligent, if you're trying to design the AI systems, at some point you would always say that you wanted to have a system that was smart as a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. Now, most 3-year-olds turn out to lie. And one of the systems psychologically, right, is the fact that you know it's intelligent if it's able to lie.
Oh, why?
Yep. Lie. The kid's not. Well, kids don't. If kids who never lie aren't very smart, they're not very intelligent, right?
They're kind of lying is what's called confabulation. It's more like trying to plead, well, until they get a little older, then they do definitely.
At some point, when I say that the shit on the floor wasn't me, it was the dog.
And that's confabulation.
Okay.
I mean, that's a kind of lying.
But it's a kind of it's deception. That's where I started going. It's definitely deception. Where you send out a fake message to see if you get an answer that has high benefit for low cost.
One of my first cases when I was in medical school with psychiatric division, and they were getting this psychiatrist was demonstrating how his drunk guy was lying, was, confabulating.
Right.
So, how they had a great time that night. I was like blind huge. The drink was great. Oh, yeah. And then about a second later, he said, "Hey, doc, who's pulling whose leg?"
I was reading something about young chimpanzees playing cooperative, and I can't remember what age that is. And guess what the other one wants, and they tend to share things. And then when they're a little older, they stop that.
Because
They're selfish.
that's more cooperation and the lack of cooperation than actual deception.
So guessing that somebody else wants something that must be pretty abstract.
That's abstract, but you're not sending out a false message. You're trying to, I think, interpret what the other person's mind, reading the other person's mind, and what's potentially the group.
Oh, right, great. So this article didn't say when they start to lie.
So if you're making an
Pretending that you don't have the full person.
So I was trying to think if when Danny was building a thinking machine and you were building artificial intelligence things, did you guys ever think about the necessity for a machine to lie? To, in fact, be intelligent? Because it would be a lower cost solution to some of its problems. Give an answer that you'd accept and leave it alone. As opposed to Danny's expression was he always wanted to make a computer that was proud of him. Yes. And in the games area, that's what I was saying, how do you think about, not only in biology, you're dealing with deception all the time and all types of signals, right? The cells are sending out HIV or anything else is sending out a deceptive signal, so it's accepted.
Okay.
Sorry?
Okay.
Poker's bluffing, right? Most of the time.
That's right.
Yeah, yes.
Which thing had pieces of one robot was actually helping another one build a chair. But I don't think one of those early projects involved trying to fool people. It's hard enough to get them to do everything.
Right.
So we never got into deception and that sort of thing. But, I wonder what age children start to lie.
But or in the game strategies, cells, at what basics do cells start to send out fake messages, disinformation, or camouflage?
We already have models where cells are in competition with each other. So basically, a model or a cell can grow by eating its neighbors by sucking out similar molecules. So once you've got competition, it seems like the next step should be what you're talking about.
Yes. So, but what Seth describes it as free energy. When you're trying to take the free energy in your cell argument, that's what you're doing, right? You're sort of getting all the benefit of that cell growing up to today cheaper by eating it. So it seems that the first strategy would be to hide, whether you hide in junk or whether in computer programs, I would think that if you assume that the underlying structure was an algorithm, whether it be protein folding or any type of program, if your algorithm was known to the competition or the predator, then you're dead meat by definition, because if once he can read you, there's no reason he shouldn't be able to figure out the strategy to get your free energy that he's built up. So your first strategy would be to either hide by filling your surroundings with junk, increasing the signal or the noise.
Running is useful.
Yes. Yes. That's not deception. Right?
When the SETI people build these big antennas that talk to people 10,000 light years away, if they said jokes or what did you say that says, I'm not here, don't go?
That's right. Nobody here but us chickens.
Yes.
So one possibility is to have a repeated interaction where there's a possibility of mistakes. So, we're in some repeated cooperative relationship, choosing to help each other, but sometimes when I try to be cooperative and do the cooperative thing, a mistake happens and actually I'm selfish by accident. But if you could tell, you can differentiate accidents from real mistakes, that's great, and then selection would favor strategies that sort of forgive mistakes because they're not predictive of what's going to happen next. But this isn't exactly an example of the thing that he's talking about, where once an agent has in place a strategy that says, I forgive accidents, then it opens the door for a new strategy that makes accidents on purpose.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I make you believe I didn't mean it.
But eBay does that. Right? So eBay has a reputation concept where some of the frauds should be detected by a third party.
It reminds me, in Japan, it used to be that if you were drunk and got in an accident while driving, that was an extenuating circumstance. Of course I got in an accident. I've been drinking. Oh, okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Send the genome for the crocodile.
It's a wonderful place.
But in terms of if you've seen anyone do work really the difference or similarities between biological viruses and deceptions strategies and computer viruses and deceptions, because my sense is that they're very similar. Whether it's, again, noise to signal or signal to noise, other ways of making believe you're two computers, sort of a shake hands, right? The concept is I have to know who you are. Over repeated interaction, you have to understand you're really friendly. There should be some signals back and forth, not only saying I'm still in contact with you, but when someone's eavesdropping, a third cell or a third computer, you want to make sure that they don't either understand what you're saying, but if they tamper with our communication, protein-wise or any type of, I should be able to tell that someone, in fact, was looking or playing, and that three-party game becomes very complicated. So the analogy between computational deception and signals and biological signals, I haven't seen it. I don't know if you
Yeah. The viruses always latch on to tell the other receptors, right, which are usually used for cells to talk to each other. So they're sort of using that channel to go in and infect cells. But I haven't ever heard of a cell having a fake receptor that it could use to suck in and kill a virus. Right?
The immune system.
Well,
It's not tricky
is there
to
anything
virus,
analogous to
right?
that?
Killing the virus.
Does the immune system trick? I don't know. Does the immune system trick the virus?
No, it detects virus and figures out that it's not what it's supposed to be. It's not something
If the virus
that's
would tell the story, the virus would say they tricked me.
Everything was fine. It seemed like a perfectly good cell to infect, and then it came along and just dismantled things.
The system turns on cells.
Yeah.
So that you get these
Autoimmune disease. Yeah.
So let's go back to bacteria. So they would have these restriction enzymes. So they would actually mask their own sites in the genome, and then if the virus comes in and is not protected in these places, they could cut it there. And so the deception of the virus would be to mask the styles. I don't know if they
Or just not have.
or not have them. So there,
Thank you very much.
maybe a few hundred, maybe less than 1,000 base pairs. What's the smallest virus? The virus particles that depend on other viruses, less than 1,000 bases, I would say.
There are, yeah, so those are parasitic or associated viruses. Viroids.
What are they called?
Viroids.
Oh, so it's pre-virus or is it a virus?
It's just
There's no
it's got the
delineation.
little RNA that just sort of it carries along on the on an existing virus, might get packaged in the same particle. So it doesn't really. It's like a parasite.
It doesn't encode for its own viral shell or anything like that.
The virus will come to the people.
You use cellular machinery for its replication, and then get recognized by something in the viral code and get packaged and translated.
But if you were going to try to find the sort of the early form of a deceptive practice in biology, how would you think about it?
So going like way back, so so I don't know. I mean, we were talking about these things emerging spontaneously in experiments with just RNA. But then, once you have things compartmentalized in cells with membranes, it's not really obvious how you would make viruses in that situation.
They go from cell to cell,
Right.
and that's hard.
It's hard for RNA, but maybe just because we don't really understand how it can happen. I mean, there are RNAs that can recognize membrane surfaces, so maybe that would be enough at some point.
In artificial life, like computerized artificial life, I guess there was Tom Ray's Tierra program. This is again a long time ago. One of the things I'm not saying this is a great model for artificial life, but one thing that did happen is it's basically a program where you have these pieces of code that are competing for resources to reproduce themselves. So self-reproducing pieces of code, and then they compete for resources to see who does better. But one thing that happened very rapidly was these kind of virus-like pieces of code that basically they were shorter, they had less code there than the other ones, and they were just using some other existing self-replicating piece of code to replicate themselves. So it was really, it was a very viral kind of behavior, and it happened almost immediately. It didn't take, after just a few generations.
What's surprising so much is you take all the computers in the world, you take the World Wide Web and all of that stuff. It's a huge computational power, but there's no spontaneous inversion of viruses yet. All the viruses are made artificially by people. All the defense against viruses are made artificially by people.
Is that true, Margaret?
Yes.
So we don't have the sources of variation.
Yeah, it's.
Unless you call Microsoft Word actually to be a virus.
I talked to IBM people. So the immune system that they have is also made by people. I think once they would have an automatic immune system, that could be a program that could also produce viruses changed by company.
It also might be hard to install their software. If your computer had its own self-generated autoimmune system. It's like a way you install new software.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Forget it.
But it's very funny because the computer scientists tell me the problem with the hackers is kind of lost because you always get a message, update the software. Half of the people update the software, half don't. And the hackers just have to look at that to see where the weakness is, and then they can infect half of the people. Yeah.
Particularly since a message to update the software is being sent to you by a hacker who's actually sending you the models.
Let's get these messages saying you should update. How do I know this?
Well, biologically, how does that happen? In the virus world, when it says you should change yourself, you ask your friends or your neighbors, is this a safe cell? There's always normally a reputation authority. So in the system, how does cells attempt to say, is this cell, is the instructions, is the signal I'm receiving a real signal? Well, I guess one of the arguments made, if you find it in a cell in the wrong place, right, you're a liver cell, you showed up in your pancreas, you should kill yourself. Isn't it, right? Because your neighbors seem not to be on your wavelength. Was that not a good idea? Is that accurate?
No, I mean, probably most cancer cells sort of escape from a tumor and try to colonize somewhere else, right? End up getting killed because they're in the wrong place. They're not sending out the right signals. They clearly don't belong. And so then the surrounding cells send out signals telling them to kill themselves. And, of course, that breaks down as soon as you get a mutant that doesn't start killing itself.
But sort of the opposite of deception in some sense. It's an escape that as opposed to tricking someone, you kind of trick yourself into not listening to the signals that are being sent to you to kill yourself.
Yes,
There's no fake.
the default strategy.
It's a real strategy. You turn off a strategy. You're not sending out any fake message. I think deception has to have fake.
I still think it's the inverse. That's not.
Of
course, it's
there is so a lot of let's see, when viruses infect cells, the immune system recognizes typically that cell as an infected cell because it'll be displaying the virus on its surface. And a lot of viruses do things. Essentially, they send out signals saying, "No, it's okay."
Right.
That's a very common strategy.
Everything's all right.
That's the sort of a first deception.
Yeah.
There's no intent. But do they send out? How is that done? Do they send out random signals and eventually some of them will? Is it?
No, they'll make molecules that mimic normal cellular components, which are signals that might so do things like prevent the display of those viral peptides, or otherwise they'll put signals out on the cell surface that will make that cell look
normal? Right. So it seems to be very similar to computer things. That's what
computer things are very similar to what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, actually, in some sense, just even when if Apple sends you free software updates, in some sense, it's just a virus, right? Because updating your software on an older computer inevitably makes it run more slowly. And their goal is simply to get so much new software that people don't have to buy a new computer. I mean, this is actually true. Honestly, it's not even. It's true of Apple as well.
Every new Microsoft is slower than the previous one.
Yeah. So updating your software, I mean, it's all kind of like a scam on the part of the computer companies to put their new software into our computers. So
that's what you think. It's actually a scam for the future computers has in mind.
Yeah, that's right.
The future computer had an intent to be born.
The interesting difference it seems to me between the biological viruses and the computer viruses, just sort of what you were saying, but it's that the origination is totally different, where the biological ones are emergent as a result of selection.
Evolution versus intelligent design.
Exactly. And
So
so,
very intelligent.
Well, yeah, some of the most virulent viruses were not supposed to be virulent, right? What was this one in the 1990s? This guy, he just managed to kind of slightly infect a whole bunch of computers and just lay low, but because he made a mistake in programming it, it infected a bunch of computers and then went viral and infected vast quantities of computers. And so the effect was not intended to bring down all these computers.
But has there ever been you were saying there's never been a naturally emergent virus, but has there ever been just an error in a design virus that actually made it better? Not a human error.
Well, this is
like that one described.
But that was a human error in the design of the virus.
Yeah.
But you could imagine, like the copying error that actually made it worse.
So I believe, so this, you must be the expert, but I think it's like computer programs that people write cannot mutate in the way as DNA and RNA in order to give something reasonable.
Well, they're living in an environment with all this error correction.
Well, not really. I mean, it's actually it's very accurate. The transcription is extremely accurate.
No, but what I mean is if you write on a C program and you say, now I make a random, I flip a bit something.
Yeah.
That will never do anything better, you know, they are not.
It's easy to see how they effectively better in the Pacific. So I don't disagree with anything you said, and I don't know. I don't know who he trusts on these kinds of,
Who, the president?
I don't know who the president really trusts
McDonald.
on these kinds of strategic.
McDonald.
No,
McDonald.
yeah,
A young guy.
the young guy. Yeah, but he doesn't.
I did with Valerie Jarrett. There's a woman named Samantha
Power.
Power.
Yeah. No. Yeah, but he doesn't. The difference between who he trusts and who he likes.
Yeah.
So I don't,
Relationship.
he, not Jared. You know about Jared? Yeah. He's an idiot.
She,
An idiot.
I don't know well enough. I noticed that but she don't I noticed that Obama listens to her. His door, his telephone is always open for her. He listens to her. He believes her instincts about politics, about who is against him, who is for him, what's going around, who is hooking what from Chicago to the world.
But it's like, do you think Richard Nixon ultimately cared listened to what B.B. Rebozo thought?
Listen to
You may not know this name. B.B. Rebozo.
no, I don't remember.
Richard Nixon,
Yeah.
B.B. Rebozo was some kind of business,
Yeah.
semi-corrupt business guy who was Richard Nixon's best friend.
Mhm.
And whenever Richard Nixon went to, Key Biscayne or went to California, B.B. Rebozo was there. Richard Nixon would spend a lot of time on B.B. Rebozo's boat. And if B.B. Rebozo wanted something, Richard Nixon was there. But I don't think that Richard Nixon was deciding what to do about the
China.
war. He was talking to B.B. Rebozo.
Okay.
That's the way I think. Valerie Jarrett.
So in this regard, he's probably alone, but he feels, comparing to other leaders that I happened to meet in the last decades, Obama impressed me as an extremely autonomous person.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
He feels, he feels good with himself, even when he's alone with home. I didn't see in him what we know in Clinton or in our past. And unshut, however intelligent and still there, emotionally or psychologically, there is deep within the personality an unsatiable need for love, for explicit expressions of love. I didn't see anything of this.
I've never seen there's lots of things to say about that. Somebody told me the story that, Bob Reich told me the story. This is Robert Reich, he was Secretary of Labor.
Yeah, the small guys.
He said he had been a friend of Clinton's. They'd been students together in England. So he was kind of Clinton's friend. He said that if you went to a cabinet meeting, and whenever Clinton looked at him, he looked annoyed or looked away, for sure Clinton would call within 2 days. How's it going, Bob? What's up? Is there something on your mind? What's going on? He just wanted to love. If you tried that shit with Obama, you'd freeze in hell. I mean, Obama didn't. He's pretty nice. He had lunch alone half the days.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, they would schedule in like time for him to be alone.
Mhm.
And if he did some event where, he was speaking to 1,000 people, they would give him like a little rest time afterwards.
Too many human beings around.
Yeah, he just wanted to be, he had no need.
Yeah.
And, it's the same. He wants to be with the people he wants
I
to be
think
with.
it's a source of strength. Ultimately, in tough moments in politics, probably it's not the most effective way to mobilize people.
No, but it's a very, well, look, another thing, which I'm sure they tried a lot. If you were president, let's say you're president of the United States, and you like to play golf. You're president of the United States, and you like to play golf.
Yeah.
Okay, which he does.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a big it's a potential big political asset. You like to play golf. Okay. The president likes to play golf with his buddies. And so 80% of the golf is with the same three guys.
Yeah.
His photographer, his campaign guy, and, his three buddies from Chicago. That's who they golf. Now, most people, if they were president and they played golf, they play golf with people from Congress. They play golf with business guys. They play golf with people who would.
Read Clinton memoir.
Yeah.
So both, because it's like a list of the person what he had done with anything, and still very careful not to insult anyone years after he's not in office anymore.
And Obama just is not. It's all.
Cerebral, he's extremely cerebral.
They call him, and he has this the nickname for him during the campaign was Black Jesus.
Right? Who knows what kind of character Jesus was?
No, but he has this sense of himself as not needy.
Yeah.
And
I think of other elements. I think that when he looks at the pictures of his predecessors, he doesn't see them. He sees probably 7 or 8 of them. Probably Washington Jefferson, the two Roosevelts, I know, probably, of course, Lincoln, probably Kennedy and Reagan, I know. He doesn't see the rest of them. He thinks in terms of greatness. He understands the greatness comes from few major decisive achievements, sometimes against all odds, that happen to be perceived in hindsight as important. And that's, I think that when you think, even on Iran, what really disturbs him is the possibility that this will be a great stain on his role. If they turn nuclear under his under his watch, where he had, Bush, it's a paradox, so you will to joke and keep it. Labor governments can make war, and only Likud governments can make peace. Here you find something similar. The Bush administration, they can run very high rhetoric, but in effect, they were parallel even from ordering the Pentagon to plan contingency for certain cases. This administration, they got Nobel Peace Prize as a down payment before they even started. Somehow, they are planning and preparing much more seriously. I visited the Pentagon right now. They keep improving. They able to score American colleagues that when we are talking about surgical operations, we're talking about using scalpel, and they are talking about chisel with 10 pounds hammer. And But in the last several years, they developed extremely subtle scalpels, probably more effective than ours. And bearing in mind that they hold the big stick anyhow without having to announce it. Basically, I once told the president, look, I'm confident that if on a scale, spectrum of operational decisions, a decision to delay the Iranian nuclear program by several years would look more like a raid on Bin Laden than a fully fledged war in Iraq. You might have considered very seriously already. It is only the fact that somehow people succeeded in implanting in your mind an extremely dramatic scenario that might eventually develop out of it, that makes you judge it as something closer to the other pole. And that's not an accurate description of reality.
Didn't you start out? I might not have this exactly right, but I think he started thinking that part of his grand legacy was that he was going to bring hope and harmony to the big Middle East.
Yeah.
That he was going to give the Cairo speech, that the Islamic world was going to feel better about him, that Israel was going to be induced to be constructive, that there was going to be peace in the West Bank, and then everybody was going to feel better, and he was going to do for Iran what Nixon did for China.
Yeah.
And so I think he started with the idea that he was going to be a visionary great man. And I think he's learned in the last 4 years that that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think it's much more defensive. Because I think he's trying to avoid a stain rather than to have it achieved. Is my sense.
Yeah, that's right.
Is my sense watching. But is he? For how long? I mean, I have this sense that people always say the next year is the crucial year, the next 9 months are the crucial 9 months.
About what? About
Iran. But then it sort of
moves.
drifts.
Moves a quarter every quarter. Move forward a quarter every quarter.
Yeah, it's like shale oil was, I think it's no longer true, but for 40 years, the price at which shale oil would be profitable was the same. The current price of oil plus 10.
Yeah, but when it's 100 plus 10, it's different.
No, it's no longer
4 plus 10 is 8 plus 10.
right. But it's but is Iran likely to come to a crunch in the next year?
What's the country to reach a nuclear capacity?
Is it likely to be? Well, no. I mean that's one question, but I mean,
I'm not.
so things that could happen are there could be an attack.
Let me describe it for Iranians will always act based on what they feel, to what extent the other side, mainly the United States and Israel, are ready to act. And they're clever enough to act counter-cyclic, namely when the attempts of the whole world somewhere else or were for other reasons will be parallel from doing something, they will be active. When all of us are focused on it and stand ready, they might even go with further gambits. They might announce that they stop everything for a year, just in order to. And they are chess players, extremely clever, but they are determined to follow in the footsteps of Pakistan and North Korea, and not to fall into the trap that, in a way, late Gaddafi, or under other circumstances, the South Africans fell into. And clearly they want that to end with something like Iraq or Syria. So the very fact that I can quote these three pairs of examples means that there is opening for them. So there is a need for something much more dramatic than the present kind of level of sanction. They're very unprecedented and very painful for them. It reduced their reserves dramatically, and some of the reserves are practically blocked. They cannot approach them very easily. The real, the currency, was devaluated dramatically. And it's not easy, but as we know from other examples in the past, the elites don't suffer.
That's what I was struck by. I was struck by the fact that I didn't see, if you treated the country as one actor doing what's best for the country, then I think there's a case to be made that the, reward, take off the sanctions, give them rewards, they give up the nukes, all that. But if you take it from the point of view of the people who are there now, I don't see how, if the sanctions come off and they give up the nukes, they're alive and in power a year later.
It's the basic strategy of the regime is to defend its continuity. And for them, I'm talking from time to time about zone of immunity for the nuclear military program. But the whole program aims at achieving another layer of immunity, an immunity for the regime. They see, look at what happened right now in North Korea. They fully understand the Iranians that once they turn nuclear, that's become the ultimate guarantee that no one will try to intervene within the internal, however brutal they might have to go with their own people. So that's what they do not need it in order to drop a bomb on a neighbor. They need it in order to be able to spread terror, to hegemonize the region, to intimidate neighbors, and to be secure that whatever they are doing will not end up with someone trying to topple the regime. So I think that the problem is that for us, for Israel, time is running out because they keep enriching, they keep preparing more centrifuges. Now start with a new version of centrifuges that will be only 5 times more effective in enrichment. That shortens the time frame between decision and reaching weapon grade capabilities, running from 20% or whatever. And they protect better the size, they improve their surface to air missile system, the radars to identify stealth kind of airplanes or even kind of cruise missiles. They are not sleeping. That's already built a force of some 6,500 floating mines with GPS that can navigate, so to speak, their place into their places in the Straits of Hormuz. And it's quite a converging effort to create enough redundancy that Israel, with its limited military potential, won't be able to delay them by significant time. And probably a year later or 18 months later, even America won't be able to do it in a clearly surgical operation. And that's basically their calculation. So they do not have a timetable. It doesn't matter for them. They waited for nuclear weapons 4,000 years. They wait another 4 years or 4 quarters or 4 years, doesn't matter. They just want to reach it before they start to collapse as a regime. That's
Will their election matter?
it matters because it gives excuses to those who don't want to create a moment of truth, not to reach this moment. Under normal situation, the coming spring, it should have been a moment of truth. P5+1 going to meet in Kazakhstan. Afterwards, probably direct negotiation. There was some rumors that Valerie started to. She was born in Iran, in Shiraz. Her father, Valerie Jarrett, was born in Iran, in Shiraz. Her father was, before the revolution, he was heading a hospital financed by some international NGO, by American government, somehow to help the Iranian people. So she was born there. And some others, even, some former players, including one of my former colleagues and some former leading ambassadors, try to create a direct contact with the Iranians to try to clarify what would be the terms under which. And the Iranians assume, I know it, I'm not guessing, that this type of guys would not have contacting them without informing the NSC or State Department, Pentagon. And so for them, even if the intention is not this, it is read by the Iranians as, and they might end up, I recommend it to my colleagues here too. I told them, we cannot pretend to be able to tell you whether to talk to them directly or not if you feel that's ultimately necessary absolutely necessary to make sure that you exhausted all alternatives. But if you do it as early as possible so that coming the election, coming the April, they will have to face a choice. Because if they reach election and you are still negotiating with them, they will tell their people we are standing firm against the whole world, including America, they're all crawling to our doorstep to ask for some concessions. And at the same time, they keep moving. It's ridiculous. And I guess that even after election, someone else will be elected, whoever he is. There will be people who will say, oh, that's a moderate answer. Assume that they will elect someone who is less colorful than Ahmadinejad. Immediately there will be interpretation that he is more serious, more moderate. It is moderate Ayatollah, that make a difference. He should get a chance, so it will swallow another quarter. So that's how 2013 is going to pass. That's one of the reasons why I decided to leave, but I don't see it converging into a real moment of truth or decision. It can easily drag over another year. But at a certain point, they will turn nuclear. I told the president, I remember Clinton. I never questioned his will to block North Korea, but somehow it didn't happen. I told Jeff, I remember sitting with Bill Casey, with Reagan time, on the head of our intelligence. I got to Pax, it was exactly the same. How many sites, how many centrifuges, how about a plutonium bypass, where can they... It didn't work. Reagan wanted to see them non-nuclear. That was what might easily happen here once again.
If it happens, now what?
And I think it will, first of all, it will be the end of any conceivable non-proliferation regime. Because basically it means that if you can divide the whole world, if you have enough money, not huge amounts of money and willpower. And it will start a much more self-confident intimidation of neighbors, which still the major supplier of oil to Europe, to the east, to the far east. And the regimes there are already kind of clashed between two powers. One is Iran and the other is the Islamists in Turkey and Egypt. These are two corner kind of pillars of the main pillars of the Middle East. And the Saudi leadership, they're dying. I don't know how you call the phenomenon where a candle is just about to die.
Flicker.
So the old man there is practically, the second is deep in dementia. They now just nominated the third one, someone about our age, who was the head of intelligence Mukre, but I don't believe anyone sees him as a king. Probably knives, it's another cousin will become ultimately. But they're not self-confident. And Abdullah of Jordan is not self-confident. The UAE is, some of the Emirates are much more confident because of their money. But it's all, how to call it?
The Qataris are
Honor. They behave, they behave this way. It's I call them a TV station with an Emirates. It's kind of, I know, I met the Sheikh Jassim in Munich.
Oh, he came?
Yeah.
He came to the security conference?
Yeah, I talked to him. Yeah, but it's the Americans. I met Kerry this morning. They don't know how to read Qatar. They are totally confused. And I told them they are just starting to hedge their bets against the possibility that you will be will be the losers and the Iranians will be the winners. That's all. They see Turkey and Egypt under Islamist government, so they become more Islamist. They see the determination of the Iranians and what happens in Iraq, so they turn more pro-Iranian. So it ends up that they're less pro us or pro the others. They're trying to survive. So Kerry survived years ago. I asked, not him, the other one, ask him. Even then, ask him, are you starting to hedge your bet? It's only look at Google Earth in front of our shores, we'll find certain place where you can find two wells 25 yards from each other. One is under, the other is Iranian. They were practically drinking from the same place. Whoever has a bigger, higher diameter of pipe takes more. And so we have to take them into account. Plain. So Middle Eastern.
And what's happening in Egypt? Tell me.
I don't know. I told Kerry today, I think that you're the only players to have any leverage upon them. Because in spite of all the bad kind of ideology and kind of extreme vision, they are practical people. Morsi is an engineer. That's such. Should be the same diameter, the bolt, the nut, and the same. Doesn't have his ideology, the same spiral. And the great leader of the Muslim Brothers in Egypt is not unlike the Ayatollah that come. He's not a religious scholar, he's a veteran. You have to vaccine, you have to make sure that the cow get pregnant. It's practical. And the third one is the one who supposed to run for president. Before he was pushed by some tricks and Morsi became the candidate. He's a businessman, medium side business also. They're all practical people, so they need to feed 88 million. to create million jobs every year, probably more, to deal with the presence of multinationals, with direct, foreign direct investments, to resume tourism, to keep the canal working, to keep Sinai under control. They need you. They need America. They believe that America gives orders to World Bank, to the IMF, to any other organization that they need. And they understand that it's all about economy, and they see after a very short time, they see the kind of stress of the public, the resentment, the rejection in the streets right now. So I believe that they could be, their actual behavior, probably not the vision, but actual behavior could be shifted. I even told my colleagues here that I didn't see any reason to keep providing them with military hardware. Doesn't make sense. They don't need it against Libya, they don't need it against Sudan. So basically you have to accumulate against Israel, and then Israel has to accumulate more, and you pay both. It's unlike the Saudis and the Emirates that pay for whatever they want. I told them probably it's better to take this 1.5 billion or whatever and pour it into their economy, the infrastructure, some projects that you can have a say about, and we deepen their dependency on you. What's the future of Israel? I mean, something will happen in Iran. Maybe we'll succeed, maybe we won't, and that'll make it worse. But the demography seems terrible. Nobody sane seems to be procreating, and everybody insane in their own way seems to have 5 children. Whether it's Arabs or Orthodox, they have 5 children. If you're regular Israeli, you have 1.5 children.
The Haredim are more productive than the Arabs. We canceled some of we had exponential support function for productivity. It's something bizarre. Rather to be an S-curve, we became exponential. And always when I meet a friend with 3 children, tell him another 2 and you are deep into the social security trap. That's your job. You can sit idle. I don't. The future of Israel is waking up at the right moment before it's too late. Putting a wedge on this drift along the slippery slope toward one-state nation. First of all, because with one-state nation, it will be even faster. Yeah, it will be bi-national at first, and then in a generation with an Arab majority. In fact, one of Abu Mazen's kind of partners to leadership, Abu Allah, he was the one who negotiated with us. So, all along the crucial point some 5 years ago when he negotiated with Tzipi Livni about far from the public eye, but everyone knew. And she demanded that she will recognize the Jewish Israel, the Jewish state, as part of any document. And told her, lady, it's cannot do it. If you continue with this demand, probably will turn into one state. Each state, from the Jordan to the Mediterranean, every citizen will get a vote, and the majority will decide what could be simple. So it's not there's a need to stop this immediately. It's in a way, it's a collective blindness of our society. The sight field is not full. Some people do not see everything. What happened here, you don't see it. Never do. So that's what happens to our society right now. That's number one. And that's why it's not a zero-sum game. We are not making them a favor, doing a favor to the Palestinians, whatever. But even within the borders of smaller Israel, there is still an issue. And I think the Arabs are growing slowly. They were 40 years ago, they were 16%, now they are 20%. We should be able to provide equality. First, to the Druze, they are about 1%, they are totally Israelis in their behavior, like security people, like the military aid camp for the president, some generals, some pilots are Druze. Then we should take the Christian majority, minority, they're about another 2%. They have an education system which is better than ours. But like minority, it reminds me somehow of our students, especially between the Dnieper and the Don. The minority with a sense of being kind of isolated from, they excel in everything they do. Then I believe we have to break the monopoly of the Orthodox rabbinate on marriage and funerals and whatever, and definition of ritual, and accept in a sophisticated, subtle manner, open the gates for massive conversion into Judaism. It's a successful country. Many will apply at the beginning without making it a precondition, but under the social pressure, the need, especially of the second generation, to adapt, it will happen. And we can control the quality much more effective than our ancestors, or become the founding fathers of Israel, could deal with the way that it was a kind of salvation way of Africa and the Arab from the left. They took whatever came to save people. Now we can be selective. And I think that with much more open kind of mind about turning to the Jew, they can easily absorb another million. I used to tell Putin always, what we need is not just 1 more million. He changed Israel in a dramatic manner, the million Russians. And I think that many would prefer to be Belarusian than many young handsome girls. So we now have we used to, then you interview someone entering into some unit in the army, asking what's your name, he answers Sergei Biton. So already start to work together. Sergei Biton or Vladimir Abutbul, but I find them. I think that I'm optimistic. There's some necessity creates more flexibility, and we have the background. It depends on what you look for. I used to scorn the Haredim all the time about the Bedouin wife of Moses. He went to they brought the Bedouin wife. Paul was Bedouin. Or the grandmother of King David, she was Moabite that seduced his grandfather in the field. And the whole story is there. So we can be more tolerant. I think that
Is there any recognition of, what you said about smaller Israel, not bigger Israel, is the only prospect? That seems right, but there doesn't seem to be any recognition within the country.
There is certain underlying recognition. It's not, we had a quite surrealistic election right now. These questions are extremely urgent, both in us and the Palestinian issue. But the whole discussion was about the draft law for Haredim and the memories of the resentment kind of. We had much more genuine, a wider scale, Occupy Wall Street kind of movement. More genuine, really mobilized massive. And they appeared. They took the son of Tommy Lapid, a journalist that everyone knows because they had some, and he appeared every Friday evening on the most popular TV kind of the uncle. And he became out of nowhere not a drop of a. It's like taking a presenter of a bank, making the CEO. It's kind of a, and became the second largest party. But that reflects somehow the uneasiness of the mainstream Israeli, all elites and the youngsters from what we are doing. So I think that probably a wake-up call will come. This way I always hope not through a painful crisis where you have to bury the consequences. But through something softer. But basically there is a clear, whoever is ready to think of it independently knows what should be done. We should launch immediately a dramatic effort, even if we know that probably it won't yield the full-fledged peace. But it can yield quite easily an interim agreement where we set for kind of a solution for borders and security. And the world guarantees the Palestinians that it will not remain so. That within 5 years there will be a solution for the rest of the issue. I think that we have to launch immediately with the American effort to create regional security system based on the America, Europe, the moderate Arab country, and Israel, focused on blocking fundamentalist terror, Islamist terror, missile defense, and cornering Iran, and coming to terms on modus vivendi with the Islamist governments. And that will help those, the fact that we are moving with the Palestinians will help those moderate Sunnite leaders, most of them monarchs and emirs, to join hands with us in America, with Iran, because they personally don't care about Palestinian problem, but they are fully aware that their peoples in their streets, there will be a very high price to work with Israel to modify the tensions if we are not going with the Palestinians. And for the Israeli public, this will create a kind of framework of something reasonable. We join hands. We don't promise heaven on earth, but we join hands with the white people in the region, the world, to solve concrete issues. It will help a lot to reduce the tension. And even somehow, I think that when you focus only on the Palestinian-Israeli issue, Israel is feeling fired, we say in Yiddish, kind of sucker, if they go to peace, because they remember I pulled out from Lebanon, there is 60,000 rockets missiles. Sharon pulled out from Gaza, there are 10,000. If we will pull out from the West Bank, there will be just behind the, when you come to land, to Ben Gurion, you go over from 2,000 feet over Arab, they occupy territory. It could be crazy. So people feel that we are only giving, we cannot get anything. And it's true, for the Palestinians, we cannot get anything. But once you put into the equation the whole Arab moderate world, it ends up that we get a lot recognition from the Arab world.
That's been the argument. The problem is that's been the argument for one way or that's something.
Yeah, last 20 years.
I was going to say the last 15 years. And it seems like it's less, it's a less.
Yeah, it's less effective. That's a success of Bibi in the negative sense. He became successful in convincing our people that we did our part of it, that we tried, and all the responsibility is upon the shoulders of our one, which is not true. We never tried in the last 4 years to make, or never ready to make painful decisions in order to have a breakthrough. Later on, wasn't responsible partly for what happens. Americans made mistakes, Europeans made a lot of mistakes. But that doesn't, cannot justify our, how to put it, failure for, yeah, and it's true. Abu Mazen doesn't help. He's not an easy client.
Do people expect that Obama and Kerry are going to invest heavily in Israel-Palestinians, or that they're going to stay away from it?
Probably they dream about it, but I don't think that. I think the reason of Obama visit is that he has to do it. There are even some stories that it was born in not exactly normal way, that Paris, who got here a kind of liberty medal, planned to bring Obama in June to bring him some medal, the Israeli president, to participate in a conference that Paris initiates last several years, every June, and to participate in his 90th birthday. If you can't arrange a funeral, at least arrange a birthday. And it was promoted by some people who supported Obama actively. So he said, okay, yes, no problem. Then people heard about it, and some Jewish organizations heard about it. They said, are you crazy? You're going to make a private visit to Shimon Peres after 5 years? Missed Israel. You have to, the only way is to make a formal visit and to be hosted by the Prime Minister. So he found himself there. Then he thought twice and thought, yeah, it's not that bad. Probably just to make sure that I cease to be the reason for everything, that the fact that I didn't visit Israel, now that because of this, everything is done. So, okay, let's be there, visit all the capitals, talk to people. I don't think that something dramatic is along the way.
I mean, Clinton at a certain, you know this, you would know it really better than I, but Clinton at a certain point decided that this was his path to a Nobel Prize in history. And I don't think, Obama does not feel on that trajectory tonight.
He's not at all of him.
But Kerry, it seems to me, will decide that's what he wants to do, won't he?
No.
I mean, the imperatives of Kerry's job are that if he wants to have a historic achievement to end his career, he's not going to get a historic achievement out of anything they do in the Pacific.
No. I think he understands it. He plans to come to Israel probably even before. I don't know how to cut it.
Just take it.
I don't want to take so much.
I know, you can leave it on your plate.
I think that, Kerry made several missions for Obama in the past 4 years. Sometimes with Palestinians, sometimes with
Carter.
no, Gaza, that's far from our immediate, but with Assad, young Assad. When he came as a kind of freelancer, he used to be always over-enthusiastic. If by his very enthusiasm, it will,
Infected.
I will call it, contagion will take place, and there will be enthusiasm before they land, they will say something. I think, I look at him, I spent some time with him one-on-one. He's more realistic now because of this. So he knows, and he knows that he comes a little bit too early. Bibi doesn't have a fixed idea about what should be done, and then he makes the government that can do it. He just wait to see what kind of government he has, and then he will modify what he wants to achieve. If Kerry comes too late, too early for this, But he wants to make sure that Abu Mazen is with him and will not disappear. That's all. He's more realistic. He will try, but I think he needs a lot of luck, probably some intervention from heaven or from us. We have to. The opportunity for a fully fledged agreement will be created.
All right, but since you left, who's now going to be leaving government? He's going to go into the real world after 50 years. It was his birthday 2 days ago. Your birthday, yes?
Uh-huh.
How old are you?
71. I was born exactly 13 years after Lincoln. Same day.
And have you ever been in the private sector?
Yeah.
You've been in government?
I have been for several years.
You were for several years after you were prime minister?
Yeah.
You were in the private sector and
Yeah.
you're doing various kinds of business and
I was involved with 2 small private equity firms as a part of the general partner. And they gave advice to some of the biggest hedge funds and private equity as a consultant, and made some lectures and participated in some small scale opportunities. Some Israeli companies wanted to work in Africa, make IPO in London. They need someone who can be with them when they come to London, and the people will listen to them.
and is that the kind of thing is that the kind of
I don't know.
you're gonna try to do now?
I think of finding ways to make more money and to do something more substantial, but I cannot go at my age and from this position and start to actively on a high resolution level running an operation as a CEO or whatever. It's will be too late in life.
And do you think you're now done with government?
Tea, please.
Do you think you're now done? Or do
I
you,
assume,
or do you always looking for,
no,
I mean, Israeli politics
I'm not looking.
is very cyclical.
I'm not looking. And I don't have any kind of burning, compelling motive to come back and to prove something, justify it. But with our kind of eclectic, chaotic kind of move and stage where we are, I cannot exclude that under certain types of crisis, I might be called to play certain role. I'm not, I don't look backward with any kind of hard feelings or needs. Unlike, I don't know if you knew Sharon. Sharon was burning with a kind of sense of something that had not been completed from the time he could not become the chief of staff, then he could not become a prime minister. He was defense minister, he was sent out under a kind of inquiry commission that blamed him for some missteps and so on. So he was burning in it. And he didn't see even the last. He basically got a stroke in the evening or the morning. A major headline said that he got, according to the police, 3.5 million as a bribe to finance some political activity. Even Rabin was burning with need to come back after his first. I don't have fully satisfied. But I know that I might be called, so I would not do something that deliberately and for sure will close the way back. But I will not hesitate to go something that might, with significant probability, will scratch me in a way that will make it almost impossible to come back. They'll not be deterred if it's tempting enough. The conversation, what could be
Probably the way to have the greatest chance to come back is to look least interested and eager to come back. I think that's an irony of political life is that when you look like you don't need it and don't want it, it's you become more desirable. Become more desirable as a consequence.
You would go back to government at this stage?
I wasn't prime minister of my country, and I'm not going to be president. I'm not going to be president of my country. I am, I think, in the same general. I'm a little younger. I'm 58, but I'm in the same general place. I think that Ehud is. There were moments in my life when I was burning to do things. I was, in the 1990s, I was burning to become Secretary of the Treasury. I very much wanted to go back into government and help do something about this financial crisis in 2008. Now, if the right role presented itself, and all of that, I would go. I don't want to do anything that would. I don't want to carelessly foreclose options, since I don't know what I'm going to want in the future. But unlike, to take somebody I was friendly with, Richard Holbrooke. Whenever Richard Holbrooke was not in government, his whole life was organized around figuring out how to maximize the chance of getting back into government. I remember when I would travel, people would ask me, before 2008, I remember in India once, they asked me, where was the Democratic Party? Where's the Democratic Party going to be on the non-proliferation agreement? And I said to them, they had been talking about Holbrooke. I said, well, what did Holbrooke think? And they said, well, Holbrooke thinks it's a good idea. Holbrooke's supporting our position. And I said, well, then the Democratic Party will support it. And they said, does he have that much influence? I said, no. But I promise he will not have taken a position on the record that has any substantial chance of being opposed by whoever the Democratic presidential candidate will be. So I don't want to live my life.
He was in a way suppressed, depressed when he was out of. He never really enjoyed being out of government.
No, it was all about getting back into that. It was all about getting back in to government. People say, I've known him fairly well for the last 15 years or so, but I didn't know him before. People said that it took Kissinger a long time to come to terms with the fact
that he doesn't influence anymore.
That he wasn't going back into government.
Yeah.
That for a long time he was organized around going back into government. And at a certain point, he decided to have a different kind of role and was sort of happy having that kind of role. My challenge has been, I don't know whether you found this, it sounds from the way you spoke like you found it. My challenge was relative to the expectations of being a professor or being a government official. It was fairly easy to make substantial amounts of money. Not money like Jeffrey and some of his friends,
Yeah.
but money like,
Yeah.
money that was like a lot of money from my point of view.
Yeah.
The challenge is, and it's actually not that hard to do things that are reasonably pleasant and kind of interesting. What is hard is doing things that cause you to have adrenaline.
Cause you, Dave?
Adrenaline.
Excitement.
They're exciting, where you, like,
Yeah.
where you, that's,
It depends. It probably depends how deep you go. So in my last round in business, I have a friend who was very successful in venture capital in the good year, the very beginning of the hype. And he asked me to work with him, and after 7 months, he told a common friend of us that Ehud is not hungry enough. But I feel more hungry now than then, because then I still thought that I might come back within several years. And now I don't have any problem with with finding something that should be fun and very profitable and fun at least some of the time. For in my experience, even politics was not always fun, and even science. Before I choose to go to the military rather than to science, I spent a summer at the Weizmann Institute. Yes, I met yesterday a Nobel Prize laureate in astrophysics that worked together with a member of my class also astrophysicist. And he told him that we worked together in Weizmann Institute. So after this summer, he decided to stay in science, and I decided that we were working all the summer on photographs from bubble cell, kind of hydrogen under heavy magnetic fields. The preliminary CERN operation about identified the kind of behavior of particles. And I've seen, we were 6 labs working all over Europe and Israel on the same 1 million photographs. And after a year and a half, the professors sat down together, decide what to do. The young PhD threw the greatest idea. The professor went to the congresses abroad to represent it and so on. And I found the relation between the fascinating work in the last 6 weeks and the extremely boring looking of a picture after picture to see some abnormality in the behavior of all this bubble chamber. And I decided to go there. So somehow I don't think that any probably paintings or sculptures that
so nothing is fun at all.
Yeah.
The question is finding
something that lives, that makes a change. Yeah.
where you feel like it's
not just achievement, it's meaning, that there is some meaning. You will do something which is important to you. Yeah.
Which depends on both what the thing is and how large your what your role.
It's about something that goes beyond your body and beyond your times. I mean, important, really important. It's not complicated. Yeah, I also think that there are many things. You're probably at earlier age than all of us. Someone can gamble on some idea and want to build something from scratch, never been there, change certain part of the world. It's not for us. The most we can do is to use our capacity to integrate things, so to make judgments and to make good recommendations, to back up what we say by 2 or 3 layers deeper into certain area where we feel confident, and probably to find a way to join such efforts in a way that creates synergy between several kinds of us. I think that there could be, I spent probably all the day last Saturday or the week before in Munich, meeting with probably
I don't know, 20 ministers of foreign affairs and heads of states who were invited there. From Georgia, to Mongolia, Montenegro, the Albania, Zagreb, the Estonia. And you see how much these guys, some of them at the very kind of, not primordial, but embryonic phases of normalizing a society or state, facing huge challenges with, and you having huge potentials in a way. And they don't know how to, don't feel confident about how to move in economy, how to move in finance, how to move in security, how to move in international relations, positioning themselves. I think that working on such projects could be fascinating, because you see embryonic nations. Some of them have been born as nations, they have all have some old identities. And they think that for you is something that's long behind you, is their great next challenge sometimes. That could be something of importance, you work there. I don't know. I've never been to Montenegro or Mongolia, but I think if you go to Mongolia, it's nomadic health. The most interesting thing I have heard about them participating in gathering by some NGO that was about microinsurance. They want to copy the idea of microfinancing to microinsurance. Someone told the story there that they went with microfinancing, microinsurance against weather to Mongolia. And they had to set a way how to calculate, pass the kind of equal judgment about what to pay, how to create a parameter, because you cannot go to Mongolia to take case by case. So it ended one parameter was the size of the herd that you own, because they didn't get someone from the locals to work with them. It ended up that they set the counting station at some point in this hilly landscape, and many of the shepherds identified immediately, without knowing anything about economy, that that's a parameter, and the herds were moving around. They didn't put a stempel on any. So it's full of, you find it so deeply backward that it gives a sense of something that you can do with all that you accumulated to make. You cannot invent a vaccine against, I know, some remote parasite in Africa, but in sub-Saharan Africa, there are huge opportunities to help them. And there are many corrupt people. It will take time for probably a generation down the street. They will keep robbing the natural resources by the elites, but they are still moving forward. It cannot be denied when you compare them to 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I think that could be interesting.
I think, you see, the two of you, that's why I wanted to, the two areas I think these beginning nation states, whether Mongolia or parts of Africa or even Kazakhstan has a lot of money, but they're not, the sophistication is 10 years back. The cellular service being sort of a prime example of not being burdened with copper in the ground and fiber, so you can go right to cellular phone. You have this leapfrog. And I think you're both a little crazy in the fact that in terms of compensation and money, the two hottest areas is every country wants to be now in the world of finance. They're not really talking about manufacturing. If you're a leader, you're talking about food security. You're not talking about a production line. You want to exploit natural resources, but you want to exploit your natural resources for an economy. And you want to have two things. You want to have economy and you want to have money, security. So that you two are really, I think, in the primary positions for the current time. I don't know if it lasts more than 5-10 years. Telecommunication, maybe something else takes over. You, in
We're
terms of,
not interested in development more than 70 years. Well,
Sure.
it's time.
no, but security, I think you need to think about how to break it down, cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I just, that's I think it's gonna be the hot button for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Border security is less of an issue and a lot of people can handle it, but the
But
expertise.
national security is something, because in many of these countries, they don't know even how to approach,
Yes.
on the national level issue, security of a country in the backyard of Europe, like Montenegro, Albania, or Estonia, or Latvia. And on the other hand, in total different situation, the security of Mongolia or Kazakhstan. They don't even have, they don't know what to do, so they do what they know. They issue bids and take some. And that's it. They don't build even national security in a proper way. It's the last guy who come to them with some impressive ideas and good margins, and they fall into the trap.
But if you were advising Mongolia on, see, again, I'm not sure, the general security, what is that, how do you start? What's the step 1 through 5 is what?
And from budget to what to do and what not to do, and how to do it effectively, and what could not be treated by any kind of security, but by diplomacy. And probably even, I met with the foreign minister, the national security advisor, and they insisted on sending a delegation to Israel, because we are a small country, hostile. They're good people, but they're so far behind. It's like coming to a seminar in the university about some issue. They have some, they're responsible for the country, they try to act, but it never sort of how to balance, how to approach this issue, how to make it, what's worth investing, what's not worth investing in, how to make the major effort they are doing now with multinationals to balance their approach to mining, how to combine this with security, first of all, security of the mining fields and the security of the whole area, and what to do with they're trying to find a way. They're reasonable people, but they're afraid that some of the advice that they are giving are motivated by great powers behind those who advise them, the issue of trust. And of course, they don't know what to do with the economy, and even what to do with the money they can get, how to use the potential, what to do, how to develop, what should be taken by the state, how to make the big companies participate in it, how you can leverage them to do it, how to make them, how to keep the edge of being the owner of the whole thing beyond the first signature on a document. They're not, it's not simply, nothing simple.
You were saying before you came in that you think there are a lot of these people who really are very hungry for
Yes,
I think,
and you see it, right?
I feel the same. I feel that if, just a hypothesis, I spoke to a friend of mine that became a friend of Jeff as well, a guy who works with Ban Ki-moon, for $1 per year, named Terry Larson. It's a Norwegian diplomat. His wife is Norwegian. He had some trouble, so he left the public service. His wife remained there. And he travels all around the world on behalf of now assume for a moment that you, Jeff and myself, and this Terry Larson establish a consulting group that take on a basis of countries, sovereigns, to give them advice, strategic advice on macroeconomy, finance, security, and international relationship. And these all things for leaders, even democracy, for government, but clearly for a more kind of autocratic, it's a gestalt. They don't really see a difference. Everything touches everything. And if some group that says kind of can talk to each other
quickly, intelligently, give them advice. It worth money, as for some of them. Think of Kazakhstan can pay. In fact, they are paying. By now, they are paying for more than one channel. They want second opinion, third opinion, and a spatial opinion, this, that. They pay quite a lot of money, and they have this money for taking consult. Sometimes they see it as not just consulting all these sovereign. They think that if they will choose the right people, they get certain edge in nothing, probably not in lobbying, not in active lobbying, but in helping them to find a way, navigate in issues that they have with international bodies and with NGOs, and sometimes even to ask those advisors to find who could be the lobbyist. If they have to pass certain, I remember Nazarbayev came to me 10 years ago, because I felt he was frightened by some investigation that went from the United States, I believe, about some behaviors of his government. Sometimes they need an access to the ECB, to the World Bank, to
You have to be careful of this. I mean, it's a little different. It's probably a little better. They probably need access to America more often than they need access to Israel.
Yeah, but they rely more on the advice from Israel than advice from America.
Because Israel's problems are more like their problems.
No, because Israel is small enough not to threaten. But we are supposed to have good contacts all around the world. When I talk to the Mongolians, they ask me, can you talk to Putin? I said, yes, I talk to him. It's important for them because there are many antagonisms, and if a Russian, if a Russian would come to them, they would think that he works for them. If an American comes, they might find that they find themselves in a bigger game than talk. So we have.
No, that's right.
We have certain capacity of being connected in the world and not threatening anyone.
And you have a sense of having been extraordinarily effective, given Israel has a sense of having been extraordinarily successful, effective, and strong, given its location and its size. And so,
and human capital. I'm not sure whether you have the same human capital in Mongolia, but they know it as well.
No, but if you're a Mongolia or a Kazakhstan, I'd like to have a generation ahead, like Israel had, is a natural way to think. Whereas I'd like to have a generation like the United States. It's just different. I mean, it's going to be a different kind of.
No, we are also a source of unique, cutting-edge knowledge, Israel, in some issues which are extremely important for them. Water processing and both disseminating reuse of water and even the effectiveness of use of it in agriculture in semi-arid and arid areas. We have the most sophisticated agriculture on earth. The real point is that all players are Israelis, so they sometimes take 2 kilograms of newly manufactured, genetically manufactured seeds, bring them to Cuba or Angola or wherever. Within 5 years we have competitors. So we have to excel in running ahead of the wave in R&D. And we're doing in agriculture, and you know better than me that there's a need to probably double the food production within a generation or so without
You and I aren't going to tell them what seeds they want to use.
But what the direction could be.
To the people who are going to tell them.
And there is, Jeffrey can tell us that there could be certain kind of practical economic benefit from being able to be the one who point to them genuine, sincere players in certain area. But who are you going to recommend in advance. You can leverage this kind of having the trust of a government, like be it Montenegro, Latvia. Of course, the Danish government doesn't need it, but all these governments which are not yet self-confident enough, they feel that they need it. They need experienced people who doesn't lose a sleep of nights if they hear of major problems. Some countries they face issues and all.
You say it's not India, but it is Mongolia, but it is.
And probably
Mongolia, and maybe it's Sri Lanka, and maybe it's.
Yeah, many out of the 194 nations, I can easily think that some 50 needs it, and we cannot work in 50 places. And some of them are potentially quite rich, or with other potentials to create money that enables them to pay for it, and they feel it or realize it. There's no sense for us to go to lost places.
Well, anyone who has natural resources has a way of the natural resources are always under a kind of quasi-state control.
Yeah,
it's not quite the government. It's not like the government's kind of taking your taxpayers' money and giving it to somebody. It's that the state natural resources, whatever, that's really where the money comes from.
I do not exclude the possibility that in 5 years' time, you will end up with decentralization of decision making in both China and India for different reasons, through different mechanisms, where you might find Chinese cities, not just the provinces, but cities, with enough authority and enough resources to hire their advisors to operate. They basically think of themselves as under the idea of centers of excellence. They look and they see we are just 400 Singapores, basically the same ethnical background or some even more advantageous, more homogeneous. And if we can copy 400 times Singapore, we are the real success of the world. When you meet with Chinese mayors right now, first of all, some of them have population under control, which are medium size to big, bigger than most of the European countries, like Austria and Switzerland and Denmark together. So, and they get more. That's part of the way of the Chinese to face the threat of losing control as a result of social. The whole transition bodes ill for them. It's not going to be a smooth way for them. And in order to face, they try to anticipate and to find generic solutions, not to keep us through processes that will smooth the eating of the problems. And India, for different reasons, they come from another direction, but they also, you might find that in Indian states, they will get more autonomous capability to take. They have the governor who's supposed to intervene on behalf of Manmohan Singh, but it's only if things get wrong in an explicit way, illegal way, big scandals that comes to the surface. So I think there is a lot of work. It could be fascinating because it's really, in a way, it's using what you accumulate all of your life to help real people facing real problems that you are acquainted with, and they don't feel as confident. They draw both emotional kind of confidence. And
it's a very good thing to do if one can find.
I think once you, not sorry, hang out the shingle, they find you. They don't know where to go. I mean, they sort of, who do I talk to? I said by default they talk to me, but
they read in the Economist the articles about them in order to try to find a hint.
It's wild. Now, you have to be sensitive. There's places like the Congo that have tremendous natural resources, but it's zero. You stay away because it's impossible. Rwanda, those African countries so it's different than Mongolia.
I met Kagame, what's his name? The big basketball player, looked like president of Rwanda.
Yeah.
And I believe that Tony Blair is giving him.
He is.
A lot of things.
Yeah.
But Kagame, I don't know about Kagame. Kagame is, it feels like if you're the president of Rwanda, you should sometimes be in Rwanda. And judging by how often I meet him, going to one conference or another, he couldn't be spending very much time in Rwanda.
Yeah, but it's a way to avoid the stress of being all the time in Rwanda.
But it's like Rwanda has gas, but it's in the middle of the lake.
But other places in Africa.
And which
I
lake?
think Africa's Brazil. Kagame said there's a gigantic gas field, but just like there's a place in.
Well, what's the problem there? The Caspian Sea also is
You can't, because it's inside. Once you can't get it out of the country because
why?
There's no infrastructure. It's not, well, in Africa, putting in even trains, half the time they steal, you put down the rails, you go to sleep, and the rails are gone because someone took it.
Is there any place in Africa that you think is
No.
a prospect?
No.
Huh?
Yes.
You think no?
Angola, maybe. I don't know who. No, I don't. I think it's, let me be less cavalier.
South Africa is going to be a major economic power. It goes very
Yes, but I think
slow.
South Africa?
I think the concept is over some 30 years, maybe. But I think there are easier, there's low-hanging fruit, like Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's a perfect example. There's $80 billion in sovereign wealth. They would like to be part of the Western world. It's the big things to be seen, to have human rights. They want to be part of the financial system. Part of it is that they don't want to be embarrassed. That's clear. So when they want to talk to someone, they want to know this discretion and good advice, so they can at least take credit for the decisions. So those are easier places. So in Africa, maybe, but very hard work, I think.
What about
South America is Venezuela at the moment. You know, Chavez dies in neck. I had a whole bunch of the oil guys here. It's the monstrous proven reserves, lots of things to do. Once Chavez goes and the financial system, they devalued their currency last week.
2%?
Yeah. So they had 3 exchange rates. Now they only have 2 exchange rates, but they don't have an economy.
But they have Dudamel.
But you
Dudamel.
yes, that's the only thing.
One of the best conductors on earth. The young Venezuelan.
So I think there's plenty of places. China's a different thing because there's a cultural. You both have a great issue in China because it gives them face to talk to you or to you, so that they feel. And if you went to see them for a day and you left the country, you never want to stay there, because if you go and you leave, they can tell all their friends that you came to just to see them. So that's a.
What about Azerbaijan?
Same thing. Just tricky.
Yeah, I met Aliyev.
Yes.
And I remember his father was a communist, kind of a KGB kind of representative in the place, head of the Communist Party. And now the son took over when the father died. It's a kind of run like a family business. I met their Minister of Foreign Affairs. It ended up that he's not just most preferred colleague, but also the best friend he has in Israel is Avigdor Lieberman.
That's all right.
Yeah. But Israelis are making a lot of business.
I think once you set it up, once people understood that you're really in business, you have to choose which is the right place. Not you'd be, and you can charge a lot of money.
I think there is an opportunity here. And if you don't.
Seems to end there. Oh my God. Really? All right. Well, with that.